What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Continue the Conversation with Tega Ororo. Today, I'm sitting down with ADIV Alex Duncan the Fourth, a songwriter and creative
What's up,
director
y'all?
whose work lives at the intersection of music, storytelling, and culture. In this episode, we're going to talk about his creative journey, how he approaches storytelling through different mediums, and what it takes to stay authentic while building a vision driven career in today's world. The conversation is going to be honest, reflective, and rooted in purpose. So let's get into it. Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you, Dee, for being here. How you
Thank
doing?
you. I'm good. I'm good. Hopefully you're staying warm. I know you're in the cold.
Got my little heated blanket, a little cozy. Will not be leaving my house anytime soon, but it's okay. It's okay. How is sunny LA?
LA is good. It's a warm 82 today. I have zero complaints.
Well, thank you for joining me. Let's get into the conversation. I basically want people to know all about you as
Hmm.
we get into some really juicy topics. So, I
No,
guess, what's your background? How did you start creating? Why did you even start writing songs? Like, how did we even start this conversation in the first place?
I grew up in church, so I'm one of like 34 cousins, and I'm one of those black families who we were all musicians. My grandmother pushed us into music. All my cousins played an instrument or sang. I was the cousin that sang the best, so I was always the soloist, and they were always pushing me to sing. But at the time, around 16, I realized like I wanted to write music, and so my dad bought me all these composition notebooks, and I would just start writing lyrics and writing lyrics and writing lyrics, and it was something that I couldn't escape. But then I went on to go to college. I have my degree in political science, which will come back up in this conversation, and then I have my MBA, and then I worked as an investment banker for years prior to my journey as a musician. And my journey is definitely not the point A to point B to point C line, but I've always been a musician. I've always been a creative, and I've always had music in me.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great understanding. Also, I'm kind of in the same place. It's like I was not a creator. I worked in politics. Now I work for a nonprofit. Now I consult. So it's like very much a mix. And as you like move along in life, things
Things
evolve to like
happen.
what you're
You have to
passionate.
be open. I always say you have to be open to the evolution of yourself to see where life can take you.
Okay, I'm gonna quote that. I'm gonna copyright it, put it on a shirt, and sell it. Thank you. With that being said, I want to get into your songwriting aspect. For people who may not fully understand what a songwriter actually does day to day, like how would you
Mhm.
describe your work? And I know you talked about like you kind of realized this is where you were going. Like, how did you turn that like realization of like this could be a career and a passion at the same time?
So everyone's journey as a songwriter is different. And that's the thing when it comes to creative fields. Unlike a lot of other fields where, the journey is go to school, get accredited, get certified, you get
Mhm.
hired. Everyone's journey is kind of like this when it comes to songwriting. In New York, I was thankfully from one of the centers of music. So I was able to always be surrounded by music, surrounded by songwriters, producers, and instrumentalists. And with these four people, without each other, we don't exist. And in the early
Mhm.
stages of your career, if you're a songwriter, you want to work with up and coming producers who are producing music, so you write the music. Along my journey, I did that for about 10 years before I got signed to a publishing deal. And so for me, my life looks a little different than a lot of other songwriters. I go to the studio 4 days a week and I'm writing music to submit to certain artists. And I have a point person at my publisher that I do that with. But outside of that, the journey and the job of a songwriter is to come in and create a body of work for an artist. Just say you take
Mhm.
as the artist. We have a first session. We talk about life. Like, what are you going through? How are your
Mhm.
emotions? How's your mental headspace? I can't write music for someone I don't know.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are different than me, but my personal journey is day one, if we're working together and you're my client, we have to spend hours together, a day together before I can
Mhm.
start that journey. But the job of a songwriter and the purpose of a songwriter is to bring out the best version of you that you want with a sprinkle of my creativity. It's kind of like a creative
Okay.
director or stylist or a director. People want their point of view, but just with a little bit of your creative direction. Nobody wants to not feel like themselves. They want to feel like
Mhm.
themselves with a little bit of sprinkle on top. And so that's my job.
Oh, awesome. So I think that's a great way to like really understand like how that collaborative feature works. And I think like one big thing is like, what is the biggest misconception people have about songwriting that I think you want to address or should address?
My biggest pet peeve on this earth when people talking about music is the term ghostwriter. So there's this misconception that rappers are in a different category of music than the rest of the people in the world, which is not true. And people have acclimated to this idea that if you have anybody on your song, oh, you're a ghostwriter. That's a ghostwriter, as if it's a negative thing. But
Mm-hmm.
they willingly consume pop music, R&B, EDM, house, and all other genres of music, which are wholly written by other people. So what people don't understand is most music you hear is wholly 100% written by songwriters. Most of it.
Okay, yeah.
There's only a few artists that are actually in the creative process and they actually add their 2 cents or they come in with a song. Very few. So
Mhm.
there's thousands and thousands of songwriters that are signed that are making music because of that. And I think people need to understand that just because you are emotionally connected to music doesn't mean you understand the business of music. And a lot of people feel like they have ownership to have these conversations online and in public in person. And I'm like, you can't argue with me about how music is made. You know, I'm a songwriter, you're not. So
Mhm.
I think people don't understand what the job of a songwriter is and what the journey of making a song is.
And I feel like that journey inspires a lot of like really great stories for the artist. And some of those stories leads to the Grammys. And this is the
Hmm.
moment I've been waiting for. You about to drop all the
Hmm.
tea, okay?
As much as I can.
You could just say everything. Like I feel like there's this like little bit of a curtain behind that. But recently, based on how people are watching this, but the Grammys have happened. And we've seen how, things get awarded and voted. Personally, for me, I'm gonna say this now. Beyonce should have won Album of the Year years ago, but that's just me. And I think many other people. But you've been close to the Grammy process. So basically explain how the voting works in a bit of detail, maybe give a lot of detail, maybe give all the information, maybe
As
expose all the
much
behind the
as I
scenes.
as much as I can say without getting my membership revoked, I
It's
will
okay to get
say
your membership revoked
it is
just
not
to give
okay
the
for I
truth to
worked hard
people.
to be in the academy. I will not get this revoked. No, but so how it works is there's a window to create music that could be submitted for the following year's award. So right now the window's open for the 2027 Grammys, right?
Okay.
And so there's all the categories involved and song of the year, record of the year, album of the year, the big ones people know, but there's hundreds of awards that are technically just for the production side of music. The Grammys is really for the production side of music. It's not for the artist and it's definitely not for the consumer. And I think that's what a lot of people get confused. They think that, well, this album went, platinum in my car and in my house, and I love it. And she had a sold out tour, so it should have won. The Grammys is not for the consumer. It's not for the audience. The Grammys is the body of professional people who work in music voting for their peers or voting for the people who worked on music. So the producer, the sound engineer, the actual studio, the instrumentalist, things like that.
Okay.
When voting opens, there's several rounds of voting. You make it
Mhm.
past the first round, you make it past the second round, and then there's the round for nominees. And then you are a nominee, and we all vote, and we don't know who votes for what. That's the high level version of how it works. I can't get into the details of the voting process, but it's. I just need people to know it's not for the consumer, and I think a lot of the uproar in the Grammys and things happen because people don't understand that this is not an award for you. It's an award for the people who are professionally working in music.
Okay, good to know. And then with that to add, I think I heard this last year, right? So when Beyonce won her album of the year, everyone on that album won a Grammy. Is that correct? Like
Yes.
every single person, songwriter, producer,
Yes.
you could have done
So
like,
the album of
okay,
the year is across the board. So everyone who worked on that album gets the Grammy. Now that's different from the song of the year versus the record of the year. The song of the year is for the songwriters and producers and people like that. The record of the year is for the actual melody, the production. It's two different sides of it. But the album of the year is all of it.
okay, good to know. I think that's something I've been wanting answers to.
Yeah.
With that, I'm gonna ask a question. Why do you think the Grammys continually faces criticism around fairness and representation?
Because the Grammy voting body is overwhelmingly a bunch of old middle-aged white men who don't know anything. That's the I mean, that's not, they nobody could be mad at me saying that. It's the truth. Like
Mhm.
literally, I mean, I can say when Renaissance didn't win. So basically during voting season, it's kind of like lobbying. You know how you worked in politics.
Yeah.
So you can understand it's literally primaries. You know how the
Mhm.
primaries work. You know how
Mhm.
people lobby to get things in bills and that it's the same thing. And there's a slew of white men. There's one guy who he's on the record on an article on Billboard saying, "I didn't vote for her. I felt like she already had too much stuff. Didn't
What?
even listen. Didn't even. But and so to a fault, in all fairness, I went to the Spotify Best New Artist party last week for the Grammys, and I had no idea who Somber was. Now,
Okay, I don't
am
know
I?
who Somber is
But listen,
either.
but
Okay, so I
am
just
I
learned.
not equally at fault for having the ability to vote and not knowing who someone was? So I understand how it can happen. But
Mm.
when the Academy is overwhelmingly middle-aged white men and old white men, are you really shocked that we're complaining about inclusivity and fairness? They don't know who people are.
Okay, to add to that, right? For me, I didn't know who Somber was. I know the song, not the artist like associated to the song, right? A good example was like the Marias, right? Became a fan because like I watched them on the Grammys. I was a fan of Cat's Eye because I watched the documentary. I've been a hardcore fan of Olivia Dean since she popped up on the market. You know, as
Yeah.
soon as she released her first song, I was there in the shadows, but I was still there. So I think that's a great understanding of that. And I think like we're seeing a lot more options, right? In like
Yeah.
the new artist nominee. Cause I'm looking at the group and they're a lot more younger. And the fact that like I think Cat's Eye's like first group to be nominated for Best New Artist or one of the first groups to be nominated for Best New Artist, meaning like there's definitely like changes growing on that. But I want to ask, do you think the like voting system should be a lot more transparent, right? I think as us viewers,
For
okay, as
who
someone who
though? For who? Remember what I
for
said.
me, for
The
the
Grammys are not
viewers.
for you. And I think, see, that's the thing. People have this emotional connection to music like no other art form. People are not this emotionally invested in movies. They're not this emotionally invested in film or photos. And it's something I understand why you can always tangibly remember a point in your life where a song is tied to a moment of feeling or what you were doing or who you with, who broke up with you, your new job, your day you went out, right? So people have this innate connection with music, so they feel ownership of something like the Grammys. The award show for the consumers is what's it called? The People's Choice Awards or the
Mm,
Billboard Awards, or because the consumer has the power to make the billboards a thing. You listen to music,
mhm.
it gets voted. Okay, I'll give it to you like this. How many blockbuster films are winning Best Film of the Year at the Oscars?
Like one.
Because the Oscars and just like the Grammys is for the professionals that work on the films.
I
It's
don't know
not
about
for
that.
the public. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear that. And people get so mad when I tell them that. And I'm like, this is in no way justifying why Beyonce didn't win for Renaissance, right? But it is, I need people to actually try to take a beat and be like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is what the Grammys are for. And the Grammys and the Oscars are considered the top awards because it's based on your peers voting for their peers, not the public.
Thank you for that because I think it's going to answer a question from my brother who's going to watch this podcast because he's always asking like why didn't Beyonce win? How does this work? All
Hmm.
of this stuff. So thank you for shining a light into the shadowing of the voting for the
Yeah.
Grammys. And one final question when it comes to this area, like do you think these awards have meaningful change when it comes to artists and songwriters careers or is it just overstated? Is it just
Absolutely. 1000%. Being Grammy nominated elevates you to a new level as a producer, a songwriter, anything, because now you are desired by people who want to reach that level. You know what I mean? It's like
mm,
if somebody won a marathon, wouldn't you train with somebody who won a marathon because you want to see what tips and tricks they did to win a marathon? Same thing
mhm.
with Grammy nominated. I mean, it's all political. It's all, if I'm being 100% honest, it doesn't really mean anything. None of this shit means anything, right? I feel like award ceremonies have lost their luster and have lost their meaning because of how political things have become, and because we live in a country where people who look like me and you never had a right to speak up, never had a right to
Mm.
protest, never had a right to use their voice, and are always made to feel happy to be in spaces. But now we're like, bro, we create the space. Like, I don't need you to tell me that my art is great, right? But at the same time, being nominated still holds weight because people want that nomination. They want that success. And so, yeah, it changes your career in a way where people who were never interested in working with you before in terms of writing are hitting you up. Like, oh, hey, let's link up. Or, hey, let's. This past weekend, I met three artists that I've been a fan of for years. I always ran into them, always knew everything.
Are you going to
I knew
drop
their
their names?
music, but
Are you going to drop
no,
their
I
names?
will not say their
Oh
names.
my gosh.
But you know who they are.
Mhm.
And because I was nominated for something but they didn't win, they were like, "Oh my
You still
god!"
got
Like,
nominated.
yeah, they were like, "Oh my god, yo, what's up?" Da
Congratulations.
da da da. And I was like, "Yeah, now you want to, So it's
Mm.
that era of like everything that somebody wants, you now are helping them attain with your nomination. So yeah, it changes the game. And winning is obviously that catapults you to a new level. But nominations are almost just as good. I mean, you see it all the time with movies and TV shows. Oscar nominated such and such and such. Golden Globe nominee such and such and such. Because it's a participation effect. It's like, I'm good enough for a nomination. That means I'm good enough. Period.
Wow. With that being said, congratulations on your nominations and your future
I was.
success.
I mean, it's not the first one, but for me, that's not tooting my own horn.
Oh,
What I
you better
mean
toot your own
is,
horn. Don't do that.
what
Don't
I
do that.
mean is, for me, it doesn't mean anything now at this point until I win. So that's like, I
Mhm.
refuse to go to the Grammys again until I know I'm nominated for something big or I win. So
I can feel that. I can relate in the political space. It's like when I won my like first election. It was a couple of years after working with a couple of different candidates. It definitely puts you in a different position on how he helped win that race, right? And like for me, it was like a really big race in our state. It was one of the 4 seats we needed to flip Michigan. So putting that work in, right, with that candidate, with that team, with that district, and then you win, it was like everyone and their mom was like, hey, do you want to work? So, with that being said, I want to have a really big conversation about a big industry that has, I think, taken over the last couple years,
mm,
the last 10, 20 years, I think, from my experience. And we're going to talk K pop, okay? For me,
K-pop.
yeah, my first experience with K-pop was To Anyone. Definitely like first song and as well as like Girls' Generation. Then, of course, I love listening to BTS and Blackpink. And for me, like my all-time favorite group right now is New Jeans. Even with the controversy they're still having, their songs are still like fire. So I'm gonna stay there. But K-pop has become very global. We've seen that with like K-pop Demon Hunters and as well as all the artists, right? Like what makes this creative ecosystem different, right? From what's currently going on in like across the world. Like I have my thoughts, but I want to hear yours.
Because they're not whitewashing, but Asian washing, Korean washing black people. That's all it is. K-pop has consistently stole from black people, black American music for the last third 3.5 decades. There's no way to sugarcoat it. It just is what it is. They blatantly copied, it's wash, repeat R&B, hip hop, and they made it so that Koreans could consume American music without having to consume Americans. It was a
Mhm.
strategic decision. And what happened is that there was no cross consumption between America and Korea because that's
Mhm.
not how consumption worked. America, for the last century, due to hegemony, has been the focus of consumption around the world.
Mhm.
But with the internet and with TV shows and with anime and with all this stuff, Korea has become a focal point of consumption for Americans. And then Americans are like, oh, this music is cool. And now Koreans are now in a cyclical motion. And this are now reintroducing Asian, Korean wash, Black American music to Americans. So
Mhm.
that's the cycle. And they are finally coming out with their own kind of version of K-pop sounds and more than one genre. But it's only successful because they were literally blatantly just copying Black American musicians and making it Korean.
I 100% agree. And I was kind of waiting for you to say that to just get into that because
Yeah.
for me, there's been a lot of discourse on TikTok and other social media platforms. And I think it was from if I can find the clip, I'll insert it in our interview, but it was from a content creator who talked about how K pop is just taking Black culture and reusing it, right? From the way they dress to the way they talk to the way some of these people interview, right? And you sit there and you're like, but why copy our aesthetic but not give us credit? Because for me,
Nothing about their culture is what K-pop is. If you look at
Mhm.
even from the 2000s, they all look like Belle Biv DeVoe and Jodeci. Like that's literally their blueprint. I'm like, it's 2015. You're dressed like Jodeci. Like what's going on? And it just works because Black culture is the most profitable and highly consumed export America has ever had. And that's just the truth. It does well everywhere. And I'm glad I forget her name, but I made a video in response to her
Mhm.
too. I'm glad she spearheaded the conversation as a Korean because, like most things, when Black people say, "Hey, this is copied from us," people say, "Oh, you guys think you created everything." Well, yeah,
Yeah,
true. It's
yeah,
because it's fucking true. Like
yeah.
it's
Rock and
true, you know.
roll.
So it's one of those things where people. I talked about this the other day in response to Shibuzi saying that America was built by immigrants.
Mhm.
Because America has been the most widely consumed nation for the last 100 years, American culture, which is wholly influenced by Black American
Mhm.
culture, has just become normalized everywhere. So it's just like pop culture in all these countries. So it's not considered a culture. most people consider culture something completely different than what they're used to. So like if I go to Nigeria, I'm like, oh my God, this is so different than what I'm used to. But Nigerians have been consuming American culture for the last 3 decades. So when they come here, they're like, there's nothing about this that's new, you know? So people like Koreans or anywhere else in the world, they feel like they can take or they have ownership of American culture because it's been so normalized around the world. And that's a deeper and more complex conversation because Black Americans, you know, we have this soft power of being American abroad, but then you're still oppressed at home.
Yep.
And they have no idea that their culture is being exported around the globe. It's tough, bro. It's a tough combo, but the K-pop one is black and white to me. There's no nuance needed. They are literally just copying Black people. That's it.
Oh, I agree. And it came up with, oh my gosh, I'm going to name drop Le Seraphim. So Le Seraphim is a group by Hybe, and they did this song Smarter, right? And I was like, I hear my people, but don't see my people, right? It was like the first real time I was like, why does it sound like an Afrobeat song? They're throwing it back.
They're even doing Afrobeat
Yes,
now?
it was Afrobeats. Like the musicality was Afrobeats. And I sat there and I was like,
Wow,
why
they
does this
moved on
sound
to
like,
Nigeria. They
I was
moved
like,
on to Nigeria.
why does it sound like Ashake would be singing to lyrics to the song? Are we
It's not funny, but I'm just like they've moved on to like say, okay, Nigerians are it now. Let's
No, it's not even just
wow.
them. It's a couple other groups too. I
Well, you
think
know what
it's,
happened? So I
yeah.
actually went to Korea early in my career when I first got signed. I went to Korea to write music, and when I went there, I said, "Oh, I'll never do this again." They were asking me just to reproduce R&B from the '90s, and this was in 2013. So I'm assuming because of the cycle, how music cycles work, they are now 10 years behind. So they're saying, so they're on Afrobeat now because Afrobeat 10 years ago took over the world, right? So I think what they're doing is probably bringing Nigerians to Seoul to make music.
Which is shocking because I feel like as a Nigerian myself, there is some level of gatekeeping that we try to do in culture, but then we're very
So
open.
here's the thing with what people don't understand about music. I did a podcast talking about this recently too, where the gatekeeping of music is essentially like impossible. It's impossible to gatekeep something that people consume. If we did not have the technology that we had, then yes. If music was created in silos and in a vacuum and nobody else listened to anything, music would be not as good. Music wouldn't be as innovative. We wouldn't continually evolve. The only reason music is the way it is because of technology and cross consumption and inspiration from other cultures. Like look at Fela Kuti. Fela Kuti created Afrobeat after coming to America and spending time in Louisiana, Detroit, New York City, and Los Angeles with the Black Panthers and in Oakland. And he incorporated all those R&B and jazz to Black American music inventions, took it back to Nigeria and fused it, and that created this new genre of music, right? Now, did he steal Black American music? No. He just was inspired and incorporated it and made it Nigerian. And that goes for so many musics, right? Like, look at us in the Americas, from the Caribbean to South America to America. All of our music that we created is a fusion of African, Native, and European. And so if those things never happen, you can't gatekeep something that is giving people a sense of like connection. So that's why music is hard. Music is very hard to gatekeep because no matter where you are in the world, people are still hearing other people's music.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's interesting hearing that in K-pop as well in that conversation, and to see them also like now, branching into Afro beats because like Tyla signed with Hybe, and that's like a big conversation there. But there's also a difference between Afro beats, I'm a piano. Like people are just
Yeah.
lumping things in. I think I want to even address this because at the Grammys I looked and it was like Afro beats category, and then there was Tyla, and then like all these like Nigerian Afro beats artists. I'm like, Tyla is not Afrobeat. She's piano / pop. Afrobeat sounds very different to us, like people who consume Afrobeats, right? And that was really shocking for me because I was like, her album versus Davido's is completely different things, right? Like
Well, that's
Davido's,
also them. That's
yeah,
also them just trying to give Africans a participation trophy. That's literally that award was created last year. It's literally a category. They're just lumping all Africans in and just saying, "Hey, here you go."
hey, I see it, but I hope that the Grammys in the future like evolves to really understand the musical. I hope. I'm hoping. A girl can dream. A girl can dream. Okay, I have a dream that one day Afrobeats will be its own category.
I'm just saying, don't forget what I said. It's 90% middle-aged white men who know nothing about black people or brown people around the world. So
You're right. You're right.
yeah.
I agree. And With that, thank you for expanding on that K-pop conversation. You basically like
Of
addressed
course.
almost everything that was important there for people to hear. And we're gonna dive a little bit into politics because a part of this
Hmm.
podcast is important. And you're very outspoken when it comes to political stuff and like what's going on in the world. I think I very much am too, as a content creator who does reaction videos but also works in politics. I try to find that intersection. How do you advocate? How does advocacy become part of your identity as a creative, right? Because I think it's very hard but also easy at the same time. So I want to see from like your purview how, how that evolved for you and how that made that your
Yeah.
niche as well.
Well,
Yeah.
I think, like I said, my journey is very, I don't want to say unique because it's probably someone who's done what I've done in background. But my journey is very different as someone who now works in music. My undergrad was political science and international affairs. And in that, I interned every summer somewhere abroad. Like my first year was at NATO in Brussels. Then I did Geneva at the UN headquarters. Then I worked on environmental policy in Brazil with the Brazilian government. And then I went to South Africa to do social entrepreneurship, excuse me. And so my life was always pushing me towards being a lawyer or being a someone who works in politics.
Mhm.
But I was only doing that because my parents said you have to go get your degree before you do music. So I've always been interested in politics. I've always been interested in what's going on in the world. And I kind of just felt out of, I've always been very vocal about things. And I
Mhm.
have a very unique understanding of a lot of issues, especially when it comes to the African diaspora, being Black and living in so many countries and having the opportunity to live around the world and seeing how people view America and our place in the world. I think I didn't talk about politics for probably a decade, just shying away from it because of my career.
Mhm.
But during the fires in LA of last year, I started a whole new page. I started a new page in January last year. I looked at it last night. It was like January 15th.
I
And I
follow
was
that
just talking about
page. Best thing that ever
yeah,
existed.
that's my favorite
Best
page
thing.
too. I just started talking about the fires and I
Mhm.
left LA. I was giving updates every day. And then one day I was at my cousin's house in Atlanta for a week. I just made a video saying day 16 of 345. And I just like started doing all of the updates. I got two messages that made me continue. Someone said, "You have an ability to take complex issues, say things clearly, and
Mhm.
make me understand them without making me choose a side." And I was like,
Facts.
"Oh, okay." And then someone else said, "Love the way you as a Black man are not shying away from talking to white people without caring if they like you or not." And I was
Mhm.
like, I have to continue this then because that's two different groups of people that I feel like need some type of representation online. That's how it started. Then it just took a life of its own and I did not realize the power of TikTok like at all at that
Mhm.
time and just the visibility of it all. And I thought it would hinder my music and creative career, but it hasn't. It's like two different parts of who I am. But I truly believe that we are only better if we are educated and we understand what's happening to us in our communities and what's happening to us at a macro and micro level. And most people live aloof in this world, especially if you look like me and you. We need to know what's happening. We
Mhm.
need to know what's happening. And being informed, I think, is a form of power for Black
Yep.
people because if they would have had their way, we wouldn't be able to go to school and read. So I like to
Mhm.
keep people informed. So that's how that happened.
No, I agree. I almost similar story. In 2022 because I was doing reaction content. Like I was not planning on being what we're doing right now. Honestly, I
Hmm.
made a video during COVID when I was like locked in my house. I was also like I got COVID and a bunch of medical issues happened, and I started making content. And by like what 6 months in. I was like close to 1 million followers, which is like insane. It like changed my life. And then politically, I became more active in 2022. And I sat there and I was like, for me, I just want you to get out and vote. That was like literally my message.
Yeah.
Like, please go get out and vote. And it's definitely changed and evolved. Now it's like, I don't know, I'm going to be honest. I'm a little frustrated, right? I'm telling people to get out and vote. They're getting out and voting and then voting for their oppressor. So then I'm
The wrong
confused.
person.
I'm like,
Yeah. Yep. 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 Yep.
it's not that hard. Like, and I want to say this. I feel like why is it when Black people always warn people danger is coming, you will go towards the danger? It's like that scary movie. You hear the sound, the Black person's
Because
running.
they've been taught that everything we say is a lie, or we're
Mhm.
not human enough for them to even believe anything we say. You know.
No, I agree, and it's hard. And with that said, like, do you think artists as well as celebrities have a responsibility to speak up? Not just during election season, but even now with what's going on with ICE in Minneapolis, this administration and being literal dictatorship. Do you feel
Yeah.
that there's a responsibility to speak up?
I think two things. I think that innately, everyone doesn't have the capacity or know enough to speak up. With that being said, the wrong message could always land with the wrong messenger, and they may not feel the need to educate themselves because they're famous and because people love them for who they are, and they'll say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing.
So thank you so much, Alex, for being here. Thank you for this really great conversation on pop culture, K-pop. It was a lot of fun. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
That was a great conversation with ADIV, songwriter and creative director. One of the conversations that really sticks with you. If you really love this conversation and it resonated with you, I would love for you to subscribe, leave a comment, and share with someone who's in their own creative path or wants to learn more. Thank you for being a part of the community, for supporting a space where real conversations can actually happen. I'll see you next time on the next episode. Until then, let's continue the conversation together. Bye, friends.